I never expected my quiet ranch to become the center of a legal fight. I bought this property for the peace, the privacy, the simple satisfaction of having land that was mine, with no one looking over my shoulder. Then one afternoon, something appeared in the sky above my backyard. A drone, hovering, slow and deliberate, circling my barn, then drifting to a stop directly over my property. No package to deliver, no obvious purpose, just watching. I stood there for a moment, telling myself it was probably nothing, a curious neighbor, a hobbyist, someone who'd lost control of a toy. I went back inside, but the feeling didn't leave me. So that evening, I pulled up my security camera footage. The drone had been over my property for nearly 20 minutes. That's not a flyby. That's surveillance. A few days later, the neighborhood talk caught up with me. Apparently, the HOA had recently purchased a drone, officially for community inspections. That explanation lasted about 30 seconds before it started unraveling, because a neighbor quietly mentioned that the drone hadn't been spending much time over community spaces. It had been flying over people's backyards, private property, and nobody had been told. Nobody had consented. And until now, nobody had proof. I decided I was going to be the person who got the proof. I installed additional cameras. I started logging every flight, dates, times, duration, exact flight paths over my property versus community areas. I documented everything with the kind of discipline most people reserve for a legal case, because I had a feeling that's exactly where this was heading. Within 2 weeks, the pattern was undeniable. The drone was spending the overwhelming majority of its flight time hovering over private homes, not parks, not common areas, not community infrastructure. Homes, backyards, personal spaces where residents had every reasonable expectation of privacy. When I raised the issue at the next HOA meeting and asked directly who is operating this drone and under what authority, the room went quiet in a way that told me everything. The HOA president insisted it was all perfectly legal, strictly for inspections, nothing to worry about. But his answer didn't match my recordings, and I wasn't the only one who'd noticed. Once I started asking questions openly, other homeowners started coming forward. Several had their own footage. Others had seen the drone and said nothing, assuming they were alone in their discomfort. Suddenly, I wasn't just one frustrated resident. I was the center of a growing coalition of people who felt their privacy had been systematically violated. I brought everything to an attorney. She reviewed the footage within an hour and told me the evidence deserved serious legal attention. We spent the next several weeks organizing the full case, timestamp video files, flight logs, witness statements from multiple residents, documentation of every HOA request that had been ignored or deflected. The HOA, sensing pressure, became defensive. Transparency evaporated. Meeting requests were stonewalled. Every attempt to get straight answers was met with resistance. Then they made a move I genuinely didn't see coming. They sued me first. I received legal papers claiming I had defamed the HOA, disrupted community operations, and created a hostile environment. It was an intimidation play, pure and simple, the kind of move powerful organizations make when they are hoping the other side will back down rather than fight. They had resources. They had lawyers on retainer, and they assumed I'd blink. They had seriously miscalculated. My attorney took one look at the lawsuit and saw it for what it was. More importantly, she saw what we had built over those months of careful documentation, and she knew it was stronger than anything they were bringing. Once the lawsuit became public, more homeowners reached out. More evidence surfaced. What had started as my fight had become a neighborhood-wide reckoning. When the case finally reached the courtroom, the HOA walked in expecting a straightforward win. Instead, they faced a wall of evidence they couldn't explain away. Timestamp footage showing repeated flights over private property. Flight logs that contradicted their inspection-only narrative. Witness testimony from multiple residents across the neighborhood. Documented patterns that no reasonable person could dismiss as coincidence. The HOA president, who had commanded every meeting with practiced confidence, looked like a different person on that stand. The certainty was gone. The easy deflections didn't work anymore, because facts, presented clearly and backed by evidence, are remarkably hard to argue against. The judge reviewed the full record carefully. Every file, every timestamp, every piece of documentation my attorney and I had spent months assembling. When the decision came down, the HOA's lawsuit collapsed entirely. Their claims didn't survive contact with the evidence. The case was dismissed, and with it went whatever authority they thought they had to surveil their own residents without consequence. Here's what I want people to take away from this, especially anyone who's ever felt powerless against an HOA or an organization that uses size and money to intimidate individuals. I didn't win because I was louder. I didn't win because I was angrier. I won because I was patient, methodical, and I kept record when most people would have just complained and moved on. Your documentation is your power. Your evidence is your voice. And the truth, when it's properly preserved and clearly presented, has a way of surviving everything that's thrown against it. They flew a drone over my property thinking no one was paying attention. I was paying very close attention. And in the end, that made all the difference. Have you ever had to fight back against an HOA overstepping its boundaries? Tell us your story in the comments, and let us know where you're watching from today.